Up and running there. That is good. I'm hoping everybody's hearing me okay. We have batteries. All right, I see I got somebody on there. If you would give me a little comment and let me know you can hear me, I would appreciate that. I had to kind of reboot stuff. Terry is watching. Terry, are you hearing me? Looks good here. You hear me okay, yeah? Okay. All right. Well, all of a sudden it started working again. If you didn't see take one, my computer just would not work. I turned it on and it just went black. So we're going to try it, and we'll see. It did this one other time, and it was only off for like 10 seconds, and it came back on. But this was like 10 minutes as I was trying to set up. So hopefully this will work well. But if everything all of a sudden just goes black, I'll try to do an impromptu version of this or whatnot. But anyway, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you being on here. Sorry for the late start. You know how schedule regimented I am. If you know me, it really bothers me to be late for this kind of stuff, so I apologize. Quick review of how things went this weekend. We had our Training the Older Adult clinic and Learn by Do that we did here live on Saturday. It was an 8-hour clinic, and I had a blast teaching it. I think we had really good reviews from everybody. We had 3 people here live, or 4 people here live, and then another 8. We had people from Ireland, New Jersey, New York, Texas, Canada, and Toronto, Canada, Colorado, California. It was really cool. And we got great reviews from everybody afterwards, and I think we're going to try to do, not another 8-hour one, but try to do maybe like a 2-hour clinic, basically all online, and then have the option to still come here live and do it in person. Maybe one every month or maybe one every other month. I really enjoyed it, and the reviews we got from everybody, I think they did too. So it might be something that we look into doing, and it was very easy technology-wise to do all this via Zoom. It went really well. So if that's something you're interested in, give me a little feedback on there. I'd love to hear from you, and I love doing this, so hopefully we'll be able to keep doing it. So let's jump into this a little bit. Basically, this whole kind of thing, the whole idea of having a philosophy, I've always heard my mentors and other coaches have always talked about having a training philosophy. And so it always got me to kind of think about the process and the idea of what would I say. Basically, it had like the elevator pitch. You run into a potential client, somebody says, oh, I hear you're a personal trainer. What do you give me your spiel, or what do you do, or how would you train me, or something along those lines. And that always seemed to come through as like a campaign or a marketing pitch, rather than actually talking about truly what it is that you do, okay? So I was never good at doing that on the spot. It didn't seem genuine. So I'd always just kind of talk to people like, well, I work with older adults. Most of my clients are like 45, 50 and up. Our average client currently now is 62. But at the time, as I was kind of going through this, you see this is July of last year, 2016. So like a year and a half ago, really trying to kind of get my finger on what I would say and going through that process. And I would just kind of tell them, this is what we do. Here's, how we train people. It's based on your goals. And, we still personalize everything, even though you're in a group. The camaraderie of the group, brings credibility to you, or an accountability to you to be here. And it's a team environment, and like really kind of talked about that whole thing. And then I realized like that is the philosophy. That's what we do. So how do we kind of organize that in the actual regiment of what we do in our training day-to-days? And all that's kind of floating around up in our minds, but have we ever really taken the time to try to gather all that and organize it and put it down on paper? That's really hard to do. And as I mentor more trainers and I work with more, I see this become more and more of a challenge for them, because they don't really know like where to start to even put something on paper to get going. They want it to be perfect. And the trainers that haven't really trained anybody yet, or they're just starting, or even worse, because they're like, I want to have the perfect philosophy to come into this, but you haven't worked it yet. You haven't trained anybody yet. So you got to just start with something, right? And be able to get something down on paper and then start to implement that as you go along. So this all came about. I was at my dry cleaners, and this is like right up around the corner here. I was picking up some shirts, and I look at the guy next to me who's waiting for his shirts as well. And I'm dressed normal. I don't have any NSCA stuff on or Be Stronger Fitness stuff. And he has a T-shirt on, and it says whatever the company name is, and then it says personal trainer under it. And so I said to him, what's your training philosophy? And he looks at me and he goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, you're a trainer, right? So what's your shirt says you're CPT. And he goes, yeah, certified trainer. I said, so what's your what's your philosophy? How would you train me? And he goes, I don't know. I don't really have one. We just lift. And in that moment, I'm thinking, like, is this, number one, I gave you a great opportunity, right? A great opportunity. Obviously, I'm asking because I'm interested. If I weren't me, the trainer, I'd be asking as a general consumer, I'd be asking to find out, how would you train me? What is your take on training? And if you come in and you're like, oh, I train bodybuilders and, we do a lot of hypertrophy training in this and I want to do endurance training, then I can tell right away that you're not the best fit for me, right? Which is not a missed opportunity. It's actually a good thing because especially working with older pops or just working with any demographic that you work with or any specialty that you work with, you don't have a missed opportunity working with someone or talking to someone that you want to actually work with. So if I had somebody that was, like, oh, my kid's looking for someone to work with, he's 18, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't really work with youth. However, I could recommend somebody as a professional, or I might be talking to this client, a potential client, and their grandparent or their parent or their neighbor or their boss or somebody that fits my demographic. They now know about it and they can recommend or refer. And so I might be able to impress that person in the moment and say, well, here's what we do with our older populations, even though the one directly in front of me is not interested in that, right? So we miss an opportunity actually in what we think is this missed opportunity. I don't know if that was confusing, but we're so quick to shut that down. Oh, this person's not interested. We're done. Finish that conversation. Engage with that person. And there's more to that opportunity than you might see in that very moment, okay? So I gave them this great chance to kind of talk to me, to kind of sell me on the idea of what they might offer as a personal trainer, as a professional. But I'm also looking at this like, is this everybody? Is this how all trainers kind of think? I don't know, we just lift. And so I started talking to others. I posted this up. I said, please help me renew my faith in this industry and tell me your philosophies. And so this was just in one day. I had 35 comments down here. One other person shared it to try to get feedback. And this whole post in this one day, it kind of took off. We ended up doing a podcast, a blog. I've written 2 articles about this. Like, this topic in itself has kind of taken off and is the theme, I guess, for that clinic that we just did is this is the philosophy that we train in. Now let's put it on paper and let's be able to teach it, not to our clients, but to other professionals as well, right? So that really brings us to the idea of how do we take all this stuff that's in our head, put it on the paper, and then be able to apply it and put it in every day. So if you haven't seen this is a little clip that I do. My schedule is a little bit different. I kind of joke and say that I'm on East Coast time, even though I'm on the West Coast here in California. I'm up at 2 a.m. I'm here to the gym by about 2:45. And from 2:45 until about 4:15, I'm writing our program up for the day. And you'll see our philosophy and our blueprint here in just a minute. That's taken, I probably had 8 or 10 different versions of it as we've kind of perfected it and built it. But this is what we do every morning. We come in, we erase all of the workouts from the day before. I kind of put up everybody's name, who's coming in, what group they're in. We have a personal one-on-one. We have a general strength and conditioning group. We have personal trainer, older adults, and then our strongman and our power lifters that come in from there. So I get all their names up. I start to build out the grids. We have kind of main strength components we do each day. And then I go through each category. I write up each component. And in these little parentheses, these little brackets here on the side, these are clients' names up here at the top: Vivian, Bill, Susan, Gary, and so on. In those little brackets, I write in there, it might be a overhead press. And it'll say Susan does a neutral grip. Jerry does a lateral shoulder raise instead of this. Vivian's going to do a push press. Whatever variation I have to do. It might be a shoulder raise, and it's like Susan's doing an empty cup, Jerry's doing a full cup, Vivian's doing Y flies instead of a general fly, So we make the little personalized components in there. We have birthdays we put up. I draw. I'm really good at drawing balloons. I'm teasing. They're terrible. But I draw balloons up there. We emphasize that. Little notes up here. Egotistically, the only thing I draw well is my own face, which isn't the hardest thing to draw. But I have little quotes up here that says, I'm always watching, and says chest up, butt out. So we were doing a lot of deadlifts and a lot of squats that day. And so it's a little tease, something kind of funny, something to get in their head of like, oh, I remember the picture. Here's the emphasis for today, right? So where a strength and conditioning coach is writing out macrocycles, mesocycles, and they're building out day by day, and then they print out all of their workouts and they hand them to the teams as they come in. I have maybe 3 or 4 teams that I work with, and instead of printing it all, putting it on a binder, putting it into Excel or whatever it is, I write it all up on the board, and at the end of the day, I take pictures of it. Okay, and so now this is now my filing system, and then this is, as Mike, you saw Mike comment on my other one, I have everything backed up in Dropbox. I just have no other way to access it if my computer doesn't work. So I panic in the moment thinking, gosh, what am I going to do in this moment? I can't do my presentation. I can't even get on to access in Dropbox. But all of these pictures, as I take them, as we file them, they all go to Dropbox, plus they're on my phone, plus they're on the computer. So this is my binder. This is my Excel format, so to speak. We write them all up. We personalize them all. I have everything kept there. And this goes all the way back to like 2004. When I first started here in Sacramento, it was one-on-one training with clients. So I had a little binder, and I'd write out, the workout with each day and all the volumes, everything that I needed to control in there. And then as I started getting partners, my first time ever training a group was by accident. I had double booked 2 clients. And instead of insisting that one leave and one stay or admitting I made a mistake, I just said, hey, we're going to do a partner workout today. And both of them were a little offended that I didn't tell them, and they were a little uneasy. And then as things got going, it was actually pretty fun. And then by the end, they were chatting and having a great time. And before I could even ask, they said, this is what I want to do. Can we keep coming in as partners? And that kind of got the ball rolling on the idea of like, all right, let's start taking some like-minded people that maybe have the same physical limitations or definitely have the same training goals, and let's start kind of merging them in. Because I was doing the split shift. I was doing the 5 a.m. to like 10:30 or 11, and then I would train and or go to school or whatever I needed between 11 and 4 or 5, and then I would come back at 5:30 to 8 and train some more clients. And so it made for a long day with throwing the hammer, going to school, and then working, training clients and such. I had so much to do. I'm like, eventually one of these has to give. So I'm going to be mornings only. Track practice in the afternoon. This will work better. I'll have free time. So I started taking clients in the evening and started seeing where could I match them in the mornings. And then I just told them all, here's my situation. Here's where I'm at. I'm wiping myself out. I'm not giving you guys the energy you deserve. Plus, I really think this is going to be fun. You're going to have a better time working in this group or with a partner. You're definitely going to be more challenged because you have this, as we know it as social facilitation, but you have this other individual there that you want to be challenged by, that you want to challenge, that you want to do a little bit better than, and so do they. So the camaraderie and the energy is kind of uplifted. And then you have an accountability to be there because your partner's waiting on you more than just me, right? So this whole kind of thing started to click. I started moving people up. Every single person in the afternoons at least tried to come in the morning, and then eventually they all stayed. I had clients that were all the husband, the wife, and the kids. I trained them all in the evenings. And when I made the switch to the morning, we actually transitioned their whole lifestyle. They all changed for their workouts to become more morning people. And now the kids are off and have gone to college and now off into real lives. And it's the Kassenbrocks, if any of you are watching or if you know them. The entire family worked with me in the afternoons, and they all through middle school, high school, college, all the way up now. The whole family has come in early in the morning. And I was blessed to have people that would do that, but the model was really good. It worked well this way. So I could kind of mix and match and put people where I wanted them, and then everything was right out in front of them. They could see it. They could, strategize on, I need to do 3 rounds of this, and I'm going to do 2 rounds here, and which one do I want to do first? And so it became a little bit of a brain teaser as they would go through. Like, it really is a fun style and a fun format to train and work with people. And we even have some little theme ones like, hey, it's hot outside, make sure you're drinking enough water. Our Golf Strong group, we put posts in there. We knew a lot of them were going out golfing that weekend, so we wanted them to stay hydrated. We have other here's my face again, up there giving them little notes on things that they need to remember, little modifications on the top there. Another birthday with Andy. Each client in between has a little asterisk of a different exercise they need to do as their superset. So we had 5 exercises they had to do, and there's a little, a little dot or whatever it was in between, and each client had something different that was specific to their physical limitation or to their goal. On Labor Day, we had a L for lunges, an A for alternating, for B for bike, O for overload. So we had little, fun basic workouts that we kind of built out there based on the day, and then personalized workouts on this side. And you can really have a lot of fun with this, more than just handing somebody a piece of paper to go in. They really get to see how much personal attention you put into this. But it all kind of roots back to this philosophy. How do I pick up and create all this stuff? It's based off of this. And I don't know if it appears well in the video. This is something I'm happy to send you. I have 4 of these. We have one for our general strength and conditioning group. We have one for our older adults, which is this one. We have one for our training the elderly, which we kind of consider like 80 and up. I know biologically and chronologically are two different philosophies on how to train people, but if we have to kind of put a bracket on something to kind of range people or to range the philosophy, this one, the older adult, is from 50 to 80, and then our other one, our elderly, is from 80 up. So very similar, just slight different progressions, different things that we kind of check for and look for, different philosophies in the sense of what physical limitations we might see from them on a regular occurring basis, or like the typical coming in, things that we can expect. I understand everything's kind of personalized per person, but we have to have kind of a philosophy or a general grouping of these things that we can kind of bracket them around. And then we have one for our power lifters and our strongmen. And so I say that not that we have a competitive like elite lifting. These are recreational lifters that, only some of them compete in our powerlifting. Our strongmen, they just like to train in the strongman philosophies and the strongman exercises. So we build a program specifically for that, where if they wanted to compete, they actually could. Now, I don't know if they would do well. We don't have all the cool gear that they would get to play with, but bottom line is even though I'm an older adult specialist, if you will, or my goal is to work with that demographic for the most part, depending on the goal that people have when they come in, I can still train them in this environment, in the same space, with all the same equipment. There's no such thing to me as old people equipment and young people equipment, or girl weights and boys weights, or girl exercises and guy exercises. Like, hopefully all that is so far behind us in this industry that we can just look at an environment and be like, this is a training environment, right? And we can pick exercises based on the need of the client. Not on the need of us, of what we want to do, but what the client needs, right? And the rest of the stuff is just tools, sandbags, kettlebells. I don't need to have pink dumbbells that are only for girls and selectorized seated machines that are only for the elderly. Like, I so don't believe in that. I think you need the right tool for the job, and that tool is the philosophy you implement. All this other stuff, it's just window dressing, right? So we need to be able to look at the groups that we are going to work with, or the demographics we are going to work with, and take a philosophy that's built for them and implement it to the best of our abilities. So we're always trying to improve this. Like I was saying, I've had probably 8 or 9 of these that we've built. I think the first time I put it on paper was in 2009, and I had a team at Arden Hills that I was working with that kind of helped us build the first one. And ever since then, it's just been evolving and continually growing to the point where we didn't have manipulation strength in here maybe 3-4 months ago. That was a new one we put in. Different variations for our rows and our presses, we put that in just recently. The elderly program we have was like 2 weeks old. I just created that one, right? So these are things that we're always trying to grow, always trying to build. And we have all this floating around in our head, and so now how do we dump this down onto paper? That becomes the challenging part. So something that we need, you hear me, if you were with us this weekend, I said this a lot. The philosophy needs to be built on the client's need. What is best for our client? And as trainers, I think we get into a position where it's like we want to implement and teach the client what we really like to do, not necessarily what they need. Even if it's like, oh, they need to learn how to hinge. Well, you do the hinges that you like to do, not the hinges that they might need or they might benefit from, right? Or benefit more from. So really emphasize the focus of your philosophy for what the client needs. It's based on many times personal experience. So being 30, almost 37 here in a couple of weeks, my focus wasn't really until my first injury in 2008, where I didn't really think about the idea of working with older populations as a expertise or as a demographic that I really wanted to pursue and work with and help benefit. But once I hurt my back, and then the next year I was diagnosed with lung cancer and had that whole surgery to remove a tumor from my lung and all this, that whole experience started to connect me with the older pops, because those are typically the ones that experience that. But I've had young clients that have cancer that have been drawn to me for that. I have young clients right now that have back injuries that have come in that are in their early 20s, late 20s. So it doesn't necessarily mean these are the only people I work with. It's just the philosophy or the experiences that I've had that have kind of led me towards that. And a lot of times entry-level trainers, I always say young trainers, but I mean rookie trainers or first-time trainers, we kind of, I don't want to say we ignore it, but we don't recognize those situations when they come up. Areas of expertise or situations that we really could excel in, maybe not so sexy, right? Not the athlete that wants to go to the Division I or that's trying to go to a pro level, but how many of those would you get versus the clients you could really make a difference with in this? So we need to recognize those moments when they come in, and a lot of times it comes from our personal experience or family members that we've helped go through certain situations. I have a trainer that I'm consulting with now who has a desire to work with individuals that have had loss in their life. And so we don't really think about, people are sad when they lose somebody, but furthering as they get older and they lose more and more people, depression can set in, and to the point where they can, self-hurt themselves, or to commit suicide, or any of these situations that would come up. But that's an area that this person was directly affected by, and now this has become kind of a calling card, and she's reached out and worked with multiple people that are on that. And as we go, we see, especially older populations, as family gets thin around them or moves on or starts to separate or some pass away, they're left all alone, and depression is a big issue that leads to this. So where's another great environment to learn and meet people and socialize and make yourself feel better? Right here in the gym, right? So she wouldn't have experienced that or probably found that direction unless the situations that had happened to her occurred, and she was present enough to accept that and see, hey, this is something that other people really need. So it doesn't directly have to happen to you. It can happen to people around you, and you learn those experiences from it. I haven't had any clients that have, I personally have not had knee injuries, knock on wood, or knee replacements. However, I've had a lot of clients that have. And through those experiences, I'm comfortable working with clients that are going through those situations. So as our time goes on and we get more opportunities to work with certain injuries or certain demographics, we gain experience from that. Okay, so those can be big influences. And then you can start to kind of focus on some of these areas of regular occurring clients you're starting to see, or the focuses that you want of either strength gaining or strength gain for older adults, and start to throw out some ideas of like, what are the things that this specific demographic or this specific goal or this specific physical limitation is really going to need from me to improve or to benefit. And so you can start to look at this of, okay, with strength gain, what are the areas I really want to address? I'm going to have some kind of push, either horizontally or vertically. I'm going to have a pull horizontally or vertically. Some kind of raise of some variation, and then our presses overhead as well. Our hinge, and then our hinge with a bent knee, which you all know as squats or as deadlifts, but it's just kind of the way that we teach it, to engage and teach people to move their hips first. And then a split stance, so lunging, step ups, running, and then loaded carries, those variations. So those kind of were the start for us to kind of look at these, and we didn't really like the idea of having to have a horizontal push and a vertical push. So we broke it out as pushes, pulls, and presses / raises, so shoulder kind of dominant work is where I kind of repeated in those. With our older adults, we have a balance. So we take right away the horizontal push. Not that we don't do them, like we benched our older pops today, but it's the last time they bench press was probably 3 weeks ago, right? We don't do a whole lot of horizontal pushing because I don't see a huge emphasis in needing that in the limited amount of time I get with a client, twice a week, 45 minutes. There's so much more I can do for this group, for this demographic, for this goal, for this physical limitation. I'll lump all those together. And balance is really one of the bigger ones. Connected in now with implement tracking, okay, being able to see something coming in and out. But with our balance training and with tracking, we are now an implement that will either fall or lose balance, and we can kind of track and save with falls. Same idea here, hinge with the bent knee, row presses and raises, so we kind of merge those together, our split stance, and then our loaded carries, same as on this side, but also including FBAs and manipulation strength now as well. And so I'll kind of talk about those a little bit more as we go. So some basic philosophies we see when I just kind of took what I saw from a lot of different trainers, a lot of different books, and threw them all up here. We see push, pull, press. We see upper pulls and lower pushes, and then upper pushes and lower pulls. We see vertical pushes, vertical pulls, horizontal push, horizontal pull. Releases, any drill where you're actually letting go of something. All of your jumping components, your balance and your agility training, squats and your hinges, your isometrics, unilateral, bilateral, contralateral, carries, floor-based activities. These are just like a couple of ways where you could say, here's how I'm going to group my movements, or here's the focuses of the movements that I want to include. This is the throw up part. I'm just going to throw it all up on there and be like, here's all the things that I like to do and that I think, and then I'm going to start to categorize those and start to push them together a little bit, where I can see, I'll come back to this in just a second. I want to find one specific. I want to kind of lump everything together, like this is the way we did it. All of our power-based movements we put onto one category. All of our strength-based movements we put into another one, then all of our endurance-based movements. Now, when I look at this, you could look at rows under long or very, very high volumes, 5 sets of 20, and say that's endurance training. I get that. But what I'm trying to categorize is, what are the main strength exercises I would utilize within in a macro cycle, within a volume control of 8 to 12 reps is kind of our target demographic. The name of our business is Be Stronger, so I want people stronger, right? So I'm going to categorize that as what are the strength-based exercises I'm going to have? These are them. Now, outside of that, what components do I use specifically, that are going to address endurance? So the rower, the assault bike or the airdyne bike, the battling ropes, jump ropes, anything dynamic where they're leaving the ground, typically done body weight, right? So dynamic lunges, scissor jumps, any of these. Any of our crawling components on the ground, our med ball return, our sled pulls, our prowler pushes, those types of things. This whole category kind of comes into me as endurance components, endurance selections, where the strength components, our rows, our presses, our split stance, our get-ups off and down the ground. Drags, notice drags are different from pushes and pulls over here. Drags are really heavy with tires or heavy, heavy loads, where we're not going real far, but we really have to grit into it. Any kind of toes we do, sit, toe, and row, sit, toe, and row. Any kind of carries we do for shorter distances, okay? Hinges with bent knees, hinges without bent knees. And then our power components, snatches, cleans, jerks, anything where we're jumping or leaving the ground for distance, for heights in those cases, which minimal with our population. Our release drills, and then any kind of swings that we do. So this is kind of how I broke it up and said, here's all my power stuff, my strength stuff, my endurance stuff. I see where each of these fit in here. And then outside of that, I'll come back to this in just a sec. How can I kind of look at all this and be like, all right, where do these exercises kind of mesh into these components? And so that's when we started to break things down a little bit further. We took mobility as well into this, and we said, this is our whole mobility menu. This is another talk I'm going to go through, and we'll have a live demo where next time we do this. But we'll demo all of these band-based movements, anything on the floor that's prone, that's supine, that's in the 6-point or the bird dog or the pointer position that we call it, and then any standing mobility. So we kind of bracketed those out, just like we did all these other exercises. But the thing I wanted to show you on here is we bracketed out the exercise itself as mobility movement prep. Then we go into strength and our power training. So we get that as our emphasis because that's really what we focus on first is our strength and our power development. Then we'll get into endurance training, which for us is more of a finisher or a burnout, something that's quick, intense, and maybe 10 minutes at the most. Usually has intervals of ups and downs. So we're getting our high intensities, but we're getting them in high peaks and allowing recoveries. And then our cool down and recovery. So we said, here are the big components of the workout that we want to cover. Here are all the pieces. Again, this is just the blow up of the mobilities. These are all the pieces that will fall into those categories. And then with volume controls and such, how do we want to be able to break those down dynamically to have each of those pieces kind of fit into what we do? And so when we looked at strength component first, strength or power, and I'll show you all of our volume controls in a second. Then we were going to kind of move into the endurance and the high intensity stuff. For us, a Metcon is 10 minutes, usually interval based, maybe a little bit longer. We also do workouts we call grid workouts, where it's a huge chart of stuff they have to do, all of column 1, all of column B, or column 2, column 3, and work our way on. Those types of exercises they're rare. We do maybe one a month, something like that. And it could be like 40 minutes long. It's just this huge endurance-based workout, but very rare that we do those. So most of our Metcons come after our strength and our power production, and then we'll do those with recovery times, 10 minutes-ish, somewhere around in there. Then we have something called a burnout. Okay, so we just classify these out. The industry might call these different terms. I'm just showing you what we use. Burnouts are 6 to 10 minutes at the max. And then they're really short recovery periods when they come in. And then we have finishers. Finishers are anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes. There are no breaks. We have the term gas it, like you are going to gas it. You are going to totally unload and just maximize this next 2 to 4 minutes. And I want you wasted to the point where you got to kind of lay down. Now, I don't want people to feel sick, and I don't want people to leave like so sweaty and gross that they can't, their arms are shaking. That's definitely not our goal. But I want people to, in this really short amount of time, I want you to gas it. I want you to give me everything you got. And it's usually on things that are really safe to do. We'll do some rope slams. We'll do a mountain climber. We'll do jam ball slams, like a med ball return, like something where if they get really tired, they're not going to hurt themselves, like a snatch or a swing or, frog jumps or something along those lines that, just a little bit more technical. So this is a good example of one of our Metcons. I'm running a timer and I'm kind of yelling out the times, and you see our coaches. You'll see the coaches in the blue and the black shirts. We're walking around kind of coaching everybody. And this was last Thanksgiving morning. We have another one of these coming up next week. This was for the SPCA, so you see our dog Layla there, she was a rescue. And everybody brought, if you see back in this way back corner, there's a huge pile of dog food and dog toys and blankets and all this. So they brought a donation item and they got to do the workout in return. And so we have stations, we have it by the timer, they have partners, but everything's pretty safe. We're doing rope slams, we're doing a little med ball squat and press, we're doing some ring rows over here, we're doing ropes, we're doing, a little dumbbell bench press, some sit to stands, like not super technical exercises of the fact that they're snatching a weight, they're throwing something that is going to hit somebody else. Like, we're pretty safe. The wall sits. We're pretty safe with the majorities that we do. So they hit those. They go after them pretty hard. And we're able to give them time intervals in between. During those time intervals, we give them an opportunity to recover, but also to personalize the exercise if we need to. So if we know somebody's coming to the med ball press and then med ball is too narrow of a component for their shoulders, we'll give them 2 dumbbells so they can press them out wider, something along those lines. So that's where knowing your clients in these bigger groups, you really need to be able to personalize that as well. All right. Then we get into our cool down, which is mostly hip and glute work for the most part, abductions, adductions, etc. We have a huge glute series if you're interested in that. If you want it from me, it's real simple. It's basically just after my hip surgery, I was focusing on rehabilitating my hip from home, not necessarily going into the gym just yet. And I had a dislocation of my left leg, so it was really rudimentary, like really base level stuff on the floor, from different isometrics to different band exercises to all the variations of glute bridging and hip thrusting that we have, depending on the device we're on or the position we're in. So I think I have 4 or 5 different series of glute trainings. If you're interested in those, I'm happy to give them to you. Our whole stretching series, so we have a whole bunch of different stretches that we do with a guided, we use these really ugly yellow straps that, you can do your hamstrings, eagles, open eagles, glute stretches, all these. And then our whole foam rolling routine, also guided, we call it the mountaineering pant or the hiking pant, wherever you have pockets. So, going through the hamstrings, the glutes, the hip flexors, the quads, down into the calves, basically everything but the IT band is kind of the areas that we go through, and then we'll do the mid and lower back as well. And then when I say fascial release, we talk about lacrosse balls. We'll do some pressure stuff in between the shoulder blades or in their glutes. We do lacrosse ball on a bare foot and let them massage and release in their feet a little bit, but nothing beyond that. No acupressure, none of this other stuff. So it's real basic kind of stuff just to kind of help them work on some tight areas. So, but we kind of program those out. And then within the program itself, with all the bigger components, you see us right up on the boards, depending on the group. We have our maximal power, our maximal strength, our hypertrophy, and our general strength training, and then our muscular endurance. And so those kind of fit with the 4 categories of the demographics we have. But if you look at these closely, and I know you probably can't see them all that great on there, but it's on the main blueprint that I'm happy to share with you if you don't have it already. Our volume controls are not the ones you would find in the NSCA textbook or any other textbook. My philosophy is I want to slightly undertrain clients pretty much all the time, because our demographic doesn't really have a in-season, off-season, preseason, postseason. We don't really have that. So yes, they'll take vacations and they'll have some weekends off here and there or whatever the case might be, but we're basically training year-round. And so I want to build in some deload weeks or some unload weeks and then some recovery weeks, but we're still training. Okay, you see some boot camps where they train for like 8 weeks and they take a week off. And to me, in my eyes, is if you would have trained them a little bit less intense, just a little bit, and then been able to train that next week on a deload week, that's another week of training to benefit, but also financially for the trainer, you don't have a week where you're out income because you worked everybody so hard, you got to give them a week off. Now, business models, the trainer wants the week off, I totally get that. Okay, but I'm looking at this as not only from a business standpoint, from a client standpoint. Clients are not training for a season that's going to come and then end, or maybe they're doing recreational with golf, those types of things. But we want to have some slightly undertrained clients that, and when I say undertrained, I mean when you push somebody to a point of either injury or exhaustion where they vomit or they're so exhausted they have to have hours afterwards to recover from, that style of training can be really dangerous, number one, leading to injury, and the client gets injured. They're done, okay, now we're having to start all over and they're losing faith in you and your abilities, or they feel so sick they need so much recovery time, they don't know if they want to come and do that again, right? So we want to just slightly undertrain, gradually continue to take baby steps towards achieving goals, but also be able to gradually and continue to train. And that is really the focus of why our volume controls are a little bit under what the rest of the industry kind of looks at and says, this is what you should be able to do for 80% or 85%. So not that we really look for our older populations. We don't look at it and say, like, what's your, 85% of your one rep. We don't traditionally look at that for this population. But when I'm ranging for certain loads to go with certain repetitions, we're slightly under. What they could do for 10 or 12 reps, we'll typically do for 13 or 4, or excuse me, for 8 or 10 reps. So in this case, I can work with repetition loads that I know they can control well. Injury risk is really low, and they come back in a couple days and do it again because they're not so sore or banged up from it, right? And these are ways that with baby boomers, with brand new clients coming in that are struggling with self-image, with the confidence of what their new program is going to bring to them, we see gradual baby steps of success rather than you just get hit in the face with a workout and, man, you're out of shape and I'm so sore and I don't know if I can come back in 2 days to do this. My hamstrings, I can barely move and I'm holding onto the railings to get up and down the stairs. Like, there are parts of our brain that hear that and we're like, yes, good workout, right? But to them, they're like, I can't do that again. I can't go through this again, And so those mindsets, like, I'd rather take baby steps into that and gradually build a client's physical success, but also their mental success, where every one of these days gets better and better and they just love it. They look forward to it because they're feeling really good. But the one time we overtrain it, they're too sore or they're injured or they feel sick, it's really a step back, especially the injury, obviously, but it's kind of a step back of like, man, it wasn't that great, right? So we're constantly seeking feedback, and this volume control, slightly undertrained, I feel like has had a much better approach with the older populations for sure. Sports performance, I get it, and those are all scientifically proven. I get that. I'm not questioning that. But with this population, that's kind of my suggestion. Okay, this is a article I wrote, Volume 3, Issue 1. Within the NSCA's PTQ. This is an article I can share with you. We have kind of like a year protection of content, and once we clear out of that, I'm allowed to share these with anybody. So if you're NSCA or not, and you would like this is something that when other trainers ask me, they're like, how did you gather the information, or how did you kind of learn about all these things to categorize all this and kind of build it into one thing? I looked at this and I said, well, really, there's 12 components to personal training in areas that we should know like a decent amount about. And as you're learning about those 12, one or two of those might stand out to you as something that really is a calling card or something that you're really interested in, right? And so these are the 12. You have disease, basically our special populations: disease, youth, older adult, and then pregnancy. And then physical limitations are the other ones that come in. So lower back, hip kind of go together. Elbow, shoulder, and then knee. Those are really the ones we kind of see the most common. And then the other ones are goal-based. So strength gain or hypertrophy. And then we have fat loss / weight management. We have speed and power production. And then we have endurance and cardiovascular training. So typically those are kind of the 12 areas when a client comes in and says, hey, I'm here to train for blank. It's one of these or a couple of these. So I like to use the analogy of I'm at a table of 12 other experts, okay? These are experts in each one of these components, and we're all going to sit and have a discussion. Can I hang with the conversation, right? And I, as the personal trainer, should be able to do that. I should be able to hear a little bit about each of these and have an opinion, or at least be able to understand what's going on. And that, to me, helps. This isn't scope of practice we're talking about. This is a whole different thing. This is your knowledge base, right? And scope of practice is a realm of business and a realm of ability that you have as a personal trainer of who you're working with, what you can talk about, and so on. This is collecting knowledge base. It is okay for us to know about weight management. It is okay for us to know about, where's my other one in here? With the knee injuries, with shoulders, with elbows, with behavioral modifications. We're okay to learn about those things, but not necessarily consult and advise and prescribe any of that to our clients, right? But I want to be able to hang at the table with these people if they're talking about it and learn more and have a conversation, not only for peer respect, because these are the people I'm going to be referring to, my physical therapist, my registered dietitian, my behavioral counselors, and I'm hopefully going to be working with clients if they need them. I'm part of the team, right? When I try to do all of it, most clients kind of see through that, and I'm usually not so great at the nutrition or the behavioral counseling. It's not the best fit. That's outside our scope. But this is pure knowledge base. I want to be able to know all these things, to be able to accumulate knowledge. So pretty much anybody that walks through the door in a recreational level, what I mean is I could be able to work with them. Someone wants to run a 5K for fun, I can help you. Someone wants to climb Mount Whitney, I can help you. But do you want to climb Mount Everest and be a world champion downhill skier, and you want to make the marathon team for the Olympics? And those are expertise. Those are high level environment, that you need to go to an expert to learn about. You're 400 pounds and you're supposed to be 180. That's weight management, behavioral counseling, a fat loss expert, right? Could I help? Yes. But is it my specialty? Is it something that I know a lot about? Not necessarily, okay? So it takes a while for us to learn about all these things, but to know which one of these are really the ones we want, that we want to know more about, that we want people to know that we are experts about. But we need to know all this information to stay in the conversation, be able to work with people as they come in, okay? So with all this said, all these little bits I just threw at you, we threw it all up on the ground. Now it's the hard part, trying to put it all together to build your map or your blueprint or whatever you want to call it, okay? Program design, what we call the blueprint. These are the must-haves. You must have one of these to bring consistency to your programming, okay? If you're just guessing stuff every day and you're not really charting or progressing or following something, you're just kind of picking stuff every day. So we need to have consistency. We want to know at the end of the training program, however long it might be, 4, 6, 8, 12 weeks, months, a year, whatever it is, was it valid, and did it work, and are the results of what we just had, were they reliable, okay? Because now we could self-reflect on that program and say this was successful, or it wasn't, we need to change something, or everybody's shoulders hurt, maybe we did too much shoulder training, right? We need to be able to look at that, and that comes all the way back to why you need to take pictures or track or keep record of everything that you're doing with every client that you have, from the mobility movement prep to the cool down and everything else in between. And then when I tell people that, especially the rookie trainer, they're like, oh, you're being overprotective every year. Wait till a legal situation comes up or wait till a client gets hurt, and you need to reflect back and see, well, oh, your shoulder started hurting 6 weeks ago and you're just telling me now? I don't remember what we did 6 weeks ago, right? I don't remember your shoulder injury that you told me about 2 years ago. Okay, I remember little bits about that. We have to keep records. Okay, this is how we act as professionals and we improve. It's through this self-reflection process. Okay, so this is important. Validity and reliability, as with any other research program or test, this is a huge part of what we have to do. So we're continually learning to try to make it better, to find are the steps right, the progressions right, the regressions right, are the movements we're putting in there appropriate for this goal, for this client, for this physical limitation. Okay, the blueprint that you're working with, you want to be able to self-reflect at the end of it and say, is it well-rounded? Is it working well? But also, even though something might be really good, we can continue to make it better, right? We can have parts that are very successful that with research and with technology and with everything else that's continuing to improve, we could make this 3% increase 3.5% or whatever it might be, right? So we're always looking for the new thing. And this is a line that Dan John had said to me. I put on here, it says, or something similar, because I don't remember the exact way he said it. But I believe it was 2009. And I was at a one-day Learn by Do for Perform Better, and he was speaking, and he said 80% of the programming that you're doing right now is good. 10% you are currently right now in the process of learning, and this was at the clinic that he was at, okay? The other 10% you don't even know about yet, or it hasn't even been researched yet, or it's still out there for you to go and obtain. And if we take that approach we pretty much have a pretty good foundation. We're in the process right now of kind of learning new stuff, but we know we have to continue to learn. There's always going to be a better way to do this. There's always going to be one more way to kind of sharpen this program to make it that much better with what we do. But we get complacent. We feel like, oh, it's good enough. I can't stand that approach. Like, oh, it's better than nothing. Come on, man. Like, be better than that. Be the professional that we want you to be, that you are, and deliver a good product and reflect on that product and make that product better with every chance that you get. And I'll have clients that'll come in and they'll say, like, hey, we used to do, wall ball, for example. Why don't we do that anymore? And I say, well, I don't feel like the benefit that you were getting from it is worth the risk that it was, the damage of the impact it was doing back to our body. So even though I had clients do wall ball for probably 7 or 8 years, it was a huge component of what we did. After they would do a couple, they'd get tired, they'd start tucking their butt, they were heaving on their... Okay, good. Sorry, I got a phone call. Okay, that's the first time that's happened. I think I need to do my airplane mode. All right, so this is my map. This is the whole thing that we just kind of went through. Okay, and the little components that I have on there. This is our exercise library. This was another part that we did where I just kind of broke up all the exercises and bracketed those out. And then we put them into the program. This is the older adult blueprint. And we took this from simple Okay, so simples over here. I've had some people tell me that my pointer isn't very visible. So we go from our simple or auxiliary row to a little bit more mid-range to our more complex or more challenging exercises. And again, they're not specifically like this is number 1, number 2. It's just these ones are a little more simple, these ones are a little more mid-range, and these ones are a little more complex. It's hard to decide if dumbbell bench press or barbell bench press is harder. It's just we just kind of progress them and lump them into difficulties, okay? And then here's our strongman and our powerlifting blueprint. You notice the difference on here. You saw our other ones: balance, implement, hinge, rows, split, carries. So here's our strongman. Deadlifts or a vertical pull. Bench presses or horizontal pushes. Bent rows or horizontal pulls. Our heaves are vertical pushes. And then our traditional strongman exercises. So we kind of lump these out into each direction of push, pull, press, and row, okay? And then all the traditionals, from the carries to the stones and the bags to drags and some of the medleys they do, to trucks and keg tosses and stones. And so we kind of put in some of those basic components, and then our volume controls down here at the bottom. To our older adults, so the ones we're working with now in our elderly program, all the way through to I'm even having components of what we do now built into some of the endurance components we have, because we have clients that are running 5Ks and half marathons, and my wife included, training for one that's going to be coming up here maybe a year or two now that post-baby, she's going to start working back into running again. So even though I don't know anything really about teaching somebody to run a marathon well, I know how to get them strong to be able to put their body through the demand to be able to run. And that's what being a personal trainer and a strength coach is for, is knowing the components, being able to put these in order, to progress them, to give them the most important things they need first, to be able to look at the things that they probably really want to do and say, well, here's the ones that you probably need to do more, and be able to kind of put a mix match of those in there so they still get the bench press with the guys that are 50 and older, because I know they love to, and they would riot if I didn't do it at least once a week or once every other week. But also put in there hinges and bridges and rows and some of the exercises they really benefit from, right? So that's our job. And how can we take all this that we think about, lump it out on paper, mix it and match it, and kind of put it into its little components? Like I always joke, I'm a waffle, not a pancake. We put all this out here in a pancake. It's all mixed together, and now we got to bracket everything up into its cube, right? You got to put it all into its spot. You got to waffle it up and be able to say, here are the components that I need. Here are the things that we need to focus on. Here's the order we're going to put those in. Here's the volume controls we're going to do them in on the days that we're going to do them, from highest priority to priority, but just lower down on the list, right? And be able to take some of the other things that probably aren't all that important and probably not do them on the days that you're with me. Because what is the best bang for your buck? What is the best service that I can offer you now to address your goal? If we don't do these things, we don't create a philosophy, if I don't have an answer to the question, how would you train me, or what is your philosophy, we're just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping something works, something sticks, you know? So in a professional standpoint, or from a professional to another, I cannot stress to you enough how important it is to do this. Hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of how to at least get started or start to put something together. I really think that it's important for us to have this, but this, not only from professional to professional, is a great way to say, here's how I do things, right? But when a client gets in front of you and you break out something like this and say, here's our philosophy, here's all the things that I want to do with you, the way I want to do them, our progressions, our regressions, that's impressive. A client sees that and they're like, wow, man, this is the right program for me. You have sold me without having to sell me. Buy now and half off and a discount. And if you act today, we don't need to do any of that. Because they just saw a really good product, a really well thought out product, right? And your passion for what you're talking about is the selling point of it. Because damn, I believe in this. It was all in here, and now I put it down and like, this is mine. And I know it works, and I want to teach it to you, you know? That part right there, that for any other client, I see hearts coming up. Awesome. Thank you guys. Like that part right there is the moment where the client says, I'm not here to bargain shop, I'm here to invest. And that's why I'm a big fan of trying to find people that want to invest in their health and their future, and not just buy you because your price was cheaper on the internet sale or on whatever app you have out there. We want to find people that are searching out for a pro that they can invest in. And when you get here, I want to have something really cool to show you, something well organized that's just for you, okay? So long story short, I know I originally came into this thinking, oh, this will only take 20 minutes, and 40 minutes later, hopefully I got my point across to you. But I'm happy to share any of this stuff. I know you can't see it all that great live, but whatever you saw on there, anything that you wanted. You want the slides from today, the PDF, just shoot me an email, robertlinkle@gmail.com. Check out BeStrongerFitness.com. Look at the mentoring page, our career page. We're going to put up a bunch of info on there. We're going to have the older adult clinic, some little snippets coming up in the next couple of weeks. ESU is going to sell the entire course, 8-week course, online here in the next couple of weeks. They're working on slicing it and putting it all together and having it there for you. And then coming up in the next couple of weeks as well, we'll continue to do these on Mondays, pending my computer works. We'll continue to do these on Mondays, every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. But I am going to try to do either once a month or once every other month, maybe a 2-hour or 3-hour continued education clinic that you can log in just like this, but through Zoom. So it's a private environment. We'd have people that are only signing up for the course be on there with us, and I can teach and go through some things and have live demos and do this for 2.5 hours, and then we can have the last 30 minutes to do Q&A, and you'll be on the screen. I'll see all the videos up there, and we can do questions back and forth and all this, and I think it'd be a really cool experience to do that. So look for those coming in the future, obviously on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. Check out the YouTube channel. We have information all out there for you guys. So hopefully you enjoyed today. I hope you have a great day. I will plan on seeing you this same time next week. And thank you again for following. Take care.